Hello, welcome to this webinar today on behalf of ESS BIZTOOLS, where we're going to overview a package within the Advanced Business Advisory Services package of services for accountants and bookkeepers. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director and Founder of ESS BIZTOOLS. Today, we're going to be looking at the SME Debtors Systems Manual, and we will work through that. If you have any questions, if you're watching the webinar live, can you please send me a question in chat? If you're watching this webinar at a time more convenient for you and for your firm, and you have a question, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. So I'm now just going to go onto our website. Which you can now view. And I'm looking for the SME Debtors Systems Manual, which on the website is on the left-hand side of the overall screen when you first go into the members area. Then I clicked on the wrong one. My apologies. SME Debtors Systems Manual. So this is the preamble to the manual. There is a separate video that you can view there if you wish. There's a summary of what's in the contents, but then we'll download the package. Now, there's a procedure control form. There's a procedure control form for every component within ESS BIZTOOLS. So I'm just going to move that across into the system. And what I have to do is so you should now be able to view the procedure control form. There's a procedure control form for each of the product packages within ESS BIZTOOLS. So if you're using the system, please use it. If you're working with a client, it will guide you through the process very well. I think if you find it doesn't guide you through appropriately, please send me an email and we will have a look at it. You can download a package which we've written on the Debtor Systems Manual. This is in series 570033. It's the paper number. 570 is a section which we don't recommend that you send the paper to your clients. This is a system for you, but within this one, this is the actual system. So normally 570 is just for accountants, but the way we've done this is the final product. So let's just go through it. So you would write there the name of your client that you're prepared it for. Your firm name to start with, the name of the firm that you're preparing the document for, the date. There is a set of contents, and these are some of the matters that you would be going through and looking at in that overall package, so that you could understand how the system operates. There's a fair bit in this system, so let me just start working through it with you. This system has been designed to assist the person who's got the direct responsibility in your client's office for the management of debtors. In my experience over many years, I found that that person tends to be a lady and tends to be a recent employee, as if the firms don't really know much about debtors, so they put the last person to arrive in charge of debtors. I don't think that's the best decision, but if they're going to do that, your clients, I think it's very advisable that that person has the benefit of having a manual to guide them through the process. Now, what we envisage you will do with this document is you will work through it. And if you want to change the titles for some of the subject matters as we work through this, please do so, because it's a document you can now edit to supply to your client. I think we need to make it as close as possible to the reality for their use. One of the reasons I say that, when I was a young accountant, I was assigned to go and undertake an audit, and the audit was of a branch regional office in a very big company, a big public company. So I turned up, and in the audit manual, it had a comment for me to check, or for whoever was undertaking this task. My manager had told me he'd gone through and ticked the items that he wanted me to concentrate on, and it was to check the cash receipt book entries. So after I got settled in, first time I'd been in this business, so they showed me around where everything was, where I could get a cup of tea from, where the various people sat that I might need to talk to. So I went over to the person that had been allocated as my minder, and I said to her, "Can I have the cash receipts book, please?" And she said, "The what?" I said, "The cash receipts book." "Oh, we don't have a cash receipts book." I said, "Oh, I think you do. It's in my audit manual, and this manual's obviously been used for the last few years. This step-by-step process. I can see where people have signed off in previous years." "No, we haven't got a cash receipts book." Well, this went round the office. Where was the cash receipts book? Have we got a cash receipts book? And finally, a lady walked over to me and said, "Do you mean the green book?" I said, "I don't know. It's my system's telling me I've got to look for the cash receipt book." And what I then discovered is that they had color-coded a whole range of activities. They had yellow book, the blue book, the purple book, the red book, and cash receipts book was the green book. So I went through the audit manual when I got back to the office and made all the changes. And I said to the manager, "Hasn't anyone ever raised this with you before?" He said, "No, you must have asked someone that just didn't understand." But anyhow, I think it's something we should be looking at. The other key areas is, let's look at some of the important documents that relate to effective debtors management. Director's guarantee, very important. The welcome to new customer letter is vital, I think, to establish the rapport with this new credit customer and to set the parameters, if you like, the rules. Is your client told the new customer what their terms of trade are? If they're 30 days, are they 30 days from the date of the invoice? Because that's what I'd be suggesting that your client should be saying, or the salesperson should be saying to that new customer, and advising them that 3 or 4 days prior to the due date for payment, they'll receive a phone call or some sort of communication to remind them that payment date is fast approaching. Because the management of debtors is a major problem for businesses all over Australia. Debtors days outstanding are far too high. We have the dubious record of having the longest debtors days outstanding in the world. Now, when this was announced a few years ago, the federal government of the day the Liberal government got very excited and brought in some legislation to try to coerce large corporations to pay on time to SMEs. And since then, the current Labor government has amended the legislation, and now they're going to name and shame companies with turnovers over $100 million per annum who are proven to not be paying SMEs within 30 days. That's all admirable, and certain politicians, I'm sure, are sitting back saying, well, we've done what we can do. But that's the culture of debtors management that's very important. I think a lot of the SME companies can do a lot more. If they're going to continue to send statements to clients, it's very important that the statements are being processed within 48 hours of the end of the month and then dispatched to the customer. But it's also important to have made sure that they've ascertained from the very beginning what additional information that customer may require with their tax invoice or their statements, because they won't pay unless they get that. Now, that should have been sorted out when the original inquiry was made. One of the questions we have in the forms, which we'll be going through shortly, relates to what additional information does the client require with their tax invoice or their statement. Because if they don't get it, they won't pay for it. A few years ago, I was conducting a directors, I had the D's wrong, directors training course in a mining area location on behalf of the federal government. And we got on to management of debtors as far as reviewing directors' duties and responsibilities. And I was talking about debtors' days outstanding, and someone said to me, what should debtors' days outstanding be? I said, well, what are your terms of trade? If they're 30 days, they should be 30 days. But most businesses in Australia have longer than that. And someone said, well, how come I supply the same industry as what some other people do? And that guy down the front of the room, he told me that his debtors are running at about 33 days and mine are over 50. And I said, well, let's explore it. Are you dealing with the same sort of customers? He said, yes. I said, are you strictly abiding by their trading terms? And the guy sitting at the front of the audience had said, no, he's not. And I've told him that. I said, so what's the issue? Oh, well, they want all this paperwork attached. I said, well, that's the condition they made in dealing with you. They wanted weighbridge certificates. And in some industries, they want health certificates. In other industries, they want photographs. And if you don't supply it, they won't pay. So what was obviously happening is this gentleman was sending in his tax invoices, probably a bit later than the other guy in the front of the room, but he wasn't attaching the supporting documentation that customer had specified. They would send back a request for more information, and literally what it meant is his bundle of invoices for payment got put at the bottom of the pile. And what it effectively meant was he got moved to at least 30 days later, and in some instances to 60 days later in his payments, because he just didn't comply. And it took him to be literally embarrassed at a public gathering relating to directors' duties for him to get the message, I think, because originally I think he was claiming that his competitor, who was in the audience sitting in the front, was getting some sort of advantage. But as we worked our way through it, and it was a great case study that came up quite unexpectedly from my point of view, but it was a great way of illustrating to a meeting of people who were appointed to the position of a director and not really understanding their duties and responsibilities, what this debtors' days outstanding was all about, and why it was so important that there was an overview by directors to ensure that an appropriate system for the management of debtors had been implemented. The Personal Property Securities Register is also a major area abutting debtors and debtors management, because the personal property securities register being ignored or not understood can cause significant problems with some of your debtors management. The calculation of the debtors' days outstanding is very important. So this paper takes you through a whole range of the matters to undertake debtors. Before talking to your client, please read this. Make sure you're familiar with it and understand the processes. So I'm now flicking through the remaining parts of the system. There's a debtor system checklist. There's an application to open an account. Here's that application form now. I know some people omit doing this, and I think they're taking a significant risk in their businesses. We need to be encouraging people to make sure they have the application completed, to find out who they're dealing with, and if it's a proprietary company, to then request directors' guarantee forms to find out who all the directors are. What's their principal activities? How many employees? Get a feel for who they are. So we need to know the information, the name of the directors, be able to identify them. How much credit are they applying for? Who are their referees, their references for their ability to pay their bills? Or is your client getting someone else's problem coming to them? You need to have them acknowledge the terms of credit that's been supplied to them. And who in your organisation is going to check all this? It's very important that you have discussed this with your client. Some of this checking might be actually undertaken by you as the accountant, performing the virtual accounting services, or there's someone in the organisation. But please sit down and mentor that person so they understand what they're trying to determine. It's no use your client expanding their sales by taking on people who just will not pay them or have got a track record of paying 95 days. It can cause financial failure to businesses when that happens. So we've got some provision there for comments by the referees and more about the proprietary limited company. So hopefully that will assist you in understanding that process. We've got a form there relating to the director's guarantee. But one of the key letters I want to show you, and obviously you can look at the rest of this in your own time, is the welcome to new customer letter. This is a vital document. It's a key bit of communications with a new customer. It's our pleasure to welcome you. And obviously put their name into the... We have established a credit limit, and tell the client tell the customer what the new credit limit is. And what are your payment terms? Are they 30 days after the tax invoice or 14 days? I worked in an industry once that had 7-day trading terms. That was the meat industry. We had to be very careful on the collection of money. So we're spelling out there that it's the tax invoices, that's the document for payment, not the debtor statement. In fact, I wouldn't be sending debtor statements out, but we need to tell the new customer, if your client's not going to send debtor statements, the payments need to be made on the tax invoices. We're asking them if there's a dispute. The terms of trade agreement are attached. Retention of title agreement. These are very important for the Personal Property Securities Register. Now, you may have a few other things you might want to add to that letter. If you do, just go ahead and do it. You can edit the letter. But if you are adding material to it, I would appreciate receiving notification of you, because perhaps I should be changing the overall document to cover those things. And what should be happening once this letter goes out is an alert should be going to the sales team to say we have signed up and approved the credit application for a new customer. They probably have had some discussions with these people, but they're now told, yes, they officially have got a credit account and you therefore can sell to them. So they should be on the phone trying to make some sales and to get the journey underway as far as a new customer is concerned. We have samples of debt recovery letters within the system. We have the document relating to the Personal Property Securities Register. There's a document which might assist you in understanding that process. We have a calculator to assist so your client understands how debtors' days outstanding has been calculated, because I found many people do not understand it. So that's the formula, and we then illustrate for them and indicate what it all means. But please go through and talk to your clients about that process. So this is a manual that, if they're using color coding, yellow, green, red, blue books, purple books, or whatever, you would edit this material to highlight that. And it will then allow you to be able to show the person that's performing these duties within your client's business just what it all means and how important their role is in ensuring that the information flows promptly to the customer. As each tax invoice is raised, that there's follow-up 3 or 4 days prior to the due date for payment to remind that customer that a payment is fast approaching. And then the information is collated at the end of the month promptly, so that within 24 to 48 hours after the end of the month, the debtors' days outstanding is able to be calculated, and the list of people who are outside the payment terms that they've agreed to, if it's 30 days outside there, so that that information can be passed on to the leadership team, the management team within your client's business for the follow-up action, making contact with those customers to get payment. Because debtors can become an enormous problem for SMEs. About 18 months ago, MYOB conducted a survey of 1,000 of their newer subscribers to their system on a whole range of issues relative to their business. And one of the big problem areas was debtors management. A majority of those people had assumed that they were obligated to offer credit terms to anyone that asked them for it. And obviously that's incorrect. Another part of that group had assumed that everyone would pay them on a 30-day basis. Well, they found out that wasn't right also. because many people were not paying on a 30-day basis. Most of them did not have an engagement letter or agreement with their customers, their new customers they'd established. And most of them had not asked for directors' guarantees when they were dealing with private companies. So there was a lot of issues with those people, and debtors management was highlighted by MYOB in their report as one of the most significant problems that new entrants to business encountered. And this can be because some of your new clients may well have worked for 30, 40 years in a business environment, bigger company, but were they there in the space where they were actually dealing with accounts and the follow-up from debtors, or was that being done within the accounting department and they really knew nothing about it? They might have been a good salesperson and sold the product, and then another part of the organisation was responsible for collecting it. But now they've left that employment and cashed in some of their superannuation or their savings and bought a business. And that business traditionally has been giving credit, or they've started a brand new business and they've decided, yes, they're going to give credit. But in many cases, they've really got no experience in operating a debtor system. So they need your input. And that's the reason we have developed this particular manual. It's so that you can go in, work your way through the system that's currently being used, make modifications where needed to the manual that we've prepared, so that they have got a manual which reflects what is operating within their business, and hopefully you've been able to agree on that and said, okay, if they do that, this system will function all right, and we should be able to keep the debtors under control. If not, I think you should be having a very detailed conversation with your client to make sure he or she realises that if they don't control debtors, their business could end up in a very bad position. And that's what happened to some of the businesses that MYOB was surveying. It wasn't all just in debtors management, incidentally. There was also problems with stock holdings, and there was problems with payments to the tax office not being met on time. But that's will be the subject of another discussion to our members on certain aspects of running businesses. We have written some articles on this whole problem of debtors management and linking it to some of the information that MYOB published from their surveys. If you haven't been able to find them or read them, just let us know and we'll give you the details of the articles and we'll send them to you. So thank you very much for joining us for this fireside chat on debtors management. There's a full active system within ESS BIZTOOLS that you can use for your clients. Please consider implementing it with your clients and charging them a fee. Our estimate of the fee you could charge for the updated manual is around $1,000, and then monitor it. Periodically check that the system's working and undertake a review at the end of each year. And if the person you have trained and mentored in handling the debtors within a client leaves or gets transferred to another job within the organisation, a hint from someone that's been down this road with clients, make sure you are alerted that there's been a change in who's doing that job, and say to the client, we are going to go and spend an hour or so in making sure this new person understands the system. Otherwise, there can be real problems in debtors management within an organisation. Thank you for being with us. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye. And I look forward to talking to you probably next week when we run our next members training session within ESS BIZTOOLS. Have a great day. Goodbye.